about finding the courage to speak your heart. So, this is really for anyone who is healing the subjugation schema and finds it hard to express vulnerable feelings, especially in the context of setting a boundary or setting a limit or requesting a change in behavior from someone. Okay, so this is a lot of this is based on my own journey from healing this subjugation schema. So I hope you can take some things from it, like shortcuts basically, and that you don't take 20 years like I did. So assertiveness is one of the four components of the confidence code. And what blocks us from being more assertive, it can often be traced back to an earlier event in our lives where speaking up or speaking our truth or saying how we feel was met with some kind of negative reaction in another person. And if that happened at a young age, then we would have interpreted the meaning of speaking our truth or speaking our heart as being risky or threatening, something to be avoided because it is risky for the relationship or for the connection, or even risky for our own individual safety. Okay, so let's take a look at what blocks assertiveness in people, and we can maybe start to get a better sense of the origins. Okay, so one event that could block assertiveness in us is if we received messages from the outside world that it was unsafe, selfish, or wrong to express what you feel. So some examples could be that if you were angry or annoyed at something that was going on in the family and you expressed that and you might have been punished for getting annoyed, then you get this message from the outside world that it's not safe for you to express your frustrations, for example. Okay, so it may be the case that you felt threatened by another person's anger or rage or frustration, so that if you were to express how you felt, that seemed to activate anger, rage, or frustration in another person. And both mothers and fathers, women and men, can express this kind of anger and rage. So it's not always associated with one particular gender. But I suppose a mother's rage might come with the threat that I'm going to lose affection or nurturance. And maybe a father's rage could come with the threat that I might be physically harmed. But both can cross over as well. But both of those are scary for a child to believe that their own expression of their own feelings and needs might activate rage or anger in another person is often enough to have them suppress and subjugate how they feel. Okay, the other event that could block assertiveness is if a child expressed how they felt or expressed an annoyance or an unmet need, basically a complaint. If a child had a complaint and that triggered suffering in the other person, so it seemed to make their mother or their father or caregiver depressed or sad, as if the child was attacking the parent and the parent couldn't cope with the child's expression, then that child might feel guilty. For confronting, having a confrontation, expressing a complaint, because they believe that just the act of them having a complaint causes suffering in the other person. Okay? Because maybe that parent or caregiver has sort of fallen in a heap, like, oh, you don't appreciate me, or creates a big scene when a child is just expressing a normal complaint. Okay, so this suppression of how a child feels leads to this subjugation schema, and it often carries over into adult life, which then results in the subjugating of how we feel and differing opinions in our close relationships with others. All right. So let's get straight to the point. How can we find the courage to say how we feel? Okay. So here it is. The pathway to healing from subjugation and activating assertiveness and therefore confidence is to cultivate relationships where confrontation is welcome and safe. If we find ourselves in relationship dynamics where confrontation is not welcome or safe, in other words, we're not allowed to have an opposing opinion, we're not allowed to differ, then it's not safe to express how you truly feel, because that complaint is going to be met with either that sort of rage, anger response, or inducing guilt. Okay, so I know that this might sound more simple than it is in practice, in reality, but I believe that if well-being is a priority for us, we have to look at all of the relationships that we have in our life as adults and say, is confrontation possible in this relationship? If I have a differing opinion or perspective on what's going on here, do I feel safe in this relationship dynamic to speak up? And if not, there may be this power imbalance going on where I'm placed at some kind of a lower tier to the other person. So it feels hierarchical. And we really need to look at, if there's a power imbalance, is this a relationship where I can grow, where I can thrive, where I can learn new things, where I can benefit from this relationship? Is this a relationship that's two-way, that's reciprocal, if I can't really ever have a complaint? Okay, so this might be a hard pill for some people to swallow, because sometimes we might sort of go, well, no, I don't think I can safely confront or express my truth in certain relationship dynamics. Okay, but if we're wanting to activate the confidence code, then we're going to get there quicker by cultivating relationships where confrontation is welcome and safe. Because you're like, well, if there's an issue, I'll just raise it with them. I'll just talk about it with them, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But at least I can relax right now, knowing that if in the future, if there's a complaint, I can just express that complaint to the person and we will work through it together. Okay, that's a really important key aspect. Okay. Also, finding the courage to say how we feel. Well, the truth is that healthy relationships can tolerate two persons' viewpoints and take into account both people's feelings and needs. Okay, so healthy relationships are based on, two people's feelings and needs being important, not just one person's, but two people's. So it's sort of like, well, this is how I feel and this is what I'm needing, but I'm also interested in how you feel and what you're needing. So it's both, not one or the other. Okay, so we're going to just do a quick embodying assertiveness and courage exercise, because sometimes I really just feel that the embodiment practice is where it's at, is where it's at with healing. Because, you know, as psychologists, I could easily do a 2-hour lecture on this topic and you'll all nod and learn something new and write down some points. But really, it's in the embodying, being able to access the feeling of courage in our bodies. That's the quickest way to heal from these patterns. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to turn my own video off because I like to close my eyes whilst I do this embodiment. So to do the embodiment, I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And just take a few breaths in and out. And take a moment to find your center. And you could do this by placing one hand over your belly, that solar plexus region just above the belly button, like we've been doing this month on the confidence code. Just in that center, your sense of self at your core. And take a moment to relax into your own unique sense of self, your own perspective on things, on life, and just embrace your own individuality. You are a whole person with your own thoughts, feelings, opinions, perspectives, and needs. Good. Now, with this sense of self and identity, take a moment to picture somebody in front of you that you would like to be able to express your true feelings to. And as you picture this person in front of you, take a moment to check in with your own intuition, your own body signals. Does this person have the capacity for mature relating? Can this person in front of you tolerate the tension that comes with having two different opinions within the one relationship? Or do you get the sense that they are likely to unravel if you express your own autonomy because they fear losing control whenever the focus is taken off their needs? If you're finding that your body and your intuition is telling you that the person in front of you is not safe for you to express your heart's truth to, then it may be wise to just take on board those signals and in this moment choose to not open up your heart to this person. Since healthy relationships require that we feel safe and that there is space for two people's opinions and truth. However, if you get the sense that the person in front of you is capable of mature relating, then I invite you to imagine taking a breath and see the good in yourself and the good in them. And then, while you're still maintaining eye contact and a feeling of warmth towards this person, imagine expressing your truth, expressing this differing point of view, or setting a boundary. And see the resistance in their face. And notice the tension and discomfort in your body. And breathe. And remind yourself, it is now safe to express your truth. This is not the past anymore. And we are not a child anymore. And we are not trapped in a situation where it's unsafe to express our truth. And see if you can access a feeling of hopefulness, that expressing of how you feel will lead to more intimacy, more connection, more mutual understanding over time, even if the present moment feels scary and unfamiliar to you. And if you're imagining that that other person is just not able to take on board your truth in this moment, perhaps be okay with just walking away from the conversation, knowing that you can come back to your truth at another time. Since it is quite hard when we start doing this, when we start being more assertive, more honest in our relationships, especially if there's been a period where we've suppressed or hidden how we felt. Okay, and what you can do is you can just lock that in to your core there in the center of your body, where you can draw courage from, knowing that you can repeat this embodiment practice at any time you want to. And then you can slowly bring your attention back into the room, back into the chair that you're on, and slowly open your eyes. Okay, lovely. All right, so everything that I'm sharing, of course, I practice myself. This is stuff that I do in my own life. And it works. And it works because I guess the healing for this subjugation schema in me is firstly asking myself that same question, which is, is this person open to mature relating? And and if I ask that question in my own relationship, the answer is yes. Yes. He is open to mature relating. We wouldn't be in this if he wasn't. So I can find that sense of safety knowing that, yes, there's going to be some tension, some discomfort, but it's not going to be unsafe in the way that it might have been during childhood. That's a massive difference. Now, this is very different to someone who may find themselves in a domestic violence relationship where actually it's not safe for them to express their truth. And, that's far more complex because assertiveness isn't the component that needs to be most worked on in that situation. But for those of us who find ourselves in more healthy relationships where growth is possible, then assertiveness is going to serve you very well. It's not going to let you down in the way that you might have feared in childhood. Right, so we're just looking at some home practice. some home practice to continue working on finding courage to speak your truth. One thing is that you could do is you could write a list of the things that affect you in your closest relationships. So write a list of the things that might cause you to feel hurt, that might upset you, that you would prefer that they didn't occur. Okay. Then the second task is to write a simple statement that captures how you feel, that is non-attacking and clear. Like a simple statement that you could say to the person, like an I statement. So I feel hurt when you yell at me whenever I burn the toast. For example, I feel hurt when you yell at me when I've burnt the toast. I would like you to show more patience and understanding when I make mistakes. Simple, okay? But if we haven't been taught that it's okay to express a need, then we don't even realize that we're allowed to make simple requests like this. And then the third home practice is developing these new narratives. So a new narrative for assertiveness. What would you need to believe about confrontation, about tension, about disagreements, and opposing viewpoints in order to become more comfortable with speaking your truth? Right, so that's the home practice for all of you to continue to activate the confidence code.